Not all deaths are tragic and inevitable. Some are frankly just dumb, especially when the victims are entitled Korans who refuse to listen to directions. Here's a list of some of the dumbest ways tourists have died. What should have been a peaceful, scenic train ride through Sri Lanka turned into a completely avoidable tragedy, one driven by pure recklessness and that all too familiar rules don't apply to me attitude. A 53-year-old Russian tourist, Olga Permanova, lost her life not because of some unpredictable accident, but because she chose to ignore basic safety and common sense in pursuit of a dramatic photo. While traveling on the famous Poti train, a route known for its stunning views, she decided that simply sitting inside like everyone else wasn't enough. No, she needed something extra. According to reports, Permanova stepped out onto the narrow footboard of the moving train, a spot that is clearly dangerous and never meant for posing or sightseeing. But, like many tourists who think they're invincible, she leaned out even further, trying to capture that perfect selfie moment. Dressed in a bright pink outfit and hanging off the side of a moving train, she reportedly positioned herself for a photo as the train curved through a stretch of track surrounded by rocks and tight clearances. This particular route is notorious for how close the train runs to the surrounding terrain, something any cautious person would immediately recognize as a red flag. But caution wasn't part of the plan. In a split second, reality hit, literally. While leaning out, she struck a rock. The impact knocked her off balance, and she fell from the moving train onto the ground below. What she likely thought would be a quick, harmless photo turned into a fatal miscalculation. She was rushed to Badula Teaching Hospital with severe head injuries, but the damage was already done. Despite treatment, she later died. The incident took place between the Badula and Hali-Ila railway stations, along one of the most scenic and, ironically, one of the most dangerous parts of the journey. This is the same route tourists flock to for its breathtaking views, including the famous Nine-Arch Bridge near Ella. It's also a place where safety rules exist for a reason, even if some people choose to treat them like suggestions. Permanova wasn't alone. She was part of a tour group. In other words, there were plenty of opportunities to simply enjoy the trip safely, like everyone else. But instead, she made the kind of decision that keeps showing up in these kinds of stories, stepping outside boundaries, ignoring risks, and assuming nothing bad would happen. It's the same mindset seen over and over again, whether it's people climbing over barriers, getting too close to wildlife, or hanging off moving vehicles. That mix of entitlement and overconfidence creates a dangerous illusion. I'll be fine. I'm different. But physics doesn't care about confidence, and rocks don't move out of the way for selfies. Originally from Saratov, Permanova worked for a security company near Moscow and was reportedly a grandmother. After the incident, arrangements were made to return her body to Russia. What was meant to be a memorable vacation ended in tragedy, not because of bad luck, but because of a completely avoidable decision. In the end, this wasn't just an accident. It was the result of a choice. The choice to prioritize a photo over safety, to ignore obvious danger, and to assume the rules didn't apply. And unfortunately, that's a mistake you only get to make once. What started as a romantic adventure in one of Thailand's most picturesque locations ended in a tragic and entirely preventable fall. A 22-year-old French tourist, Alexis Vergos, lost his life while doing something that has become all too common in modern travel, chasing the perfect selfie. The incident took place at the stunning Nam Muang 2 waterfall on Koh Samui, a location famous for its natural beauty, towering cascades, lush greenery, and panoramic views that attract thousands of visitors every year. But behind that beauty lies a hidden danger that many choose to ignore. Vergos had been hiking with his girlfriend, soaking in the scenery and documenting the moment with photos. Like many tourists, he wanted something more than just an ordinary picture, a better angle, a more dramatic backdrop, something that would capture not just the place, but the thrill of being there. And that's where things went wrong. As the couple stood near the waterfall, Vergos reportedly stepped backward while taking selfies. It was a small movement, just a few inches perhaps. But in a place like Nam Muang 2, even a tiny misstep can be deadly. The rocks around the waterfall are notoriously slick, constantly coated with moisture and moss, making them incredibly treacherous underfoot. In that split second, he lost his footing. There was no time to react, no chance to recover. He slipped off the edge and plunged down the side of the waterfall, falling onto the jagged rocks below. What had been a carefree moment instantly turned into a nightmare. His girlfriend, who had been right there beside him, watched helplessly as he disappeared over the edge. In a state of panic, she immediately called for help, her distress echoing through the otherwise peaceful surroundings. Rescue teams were quickly dispatched to the scene. Volunteers equipped with climbing gear navigated the steep and dangerous terrain in an effort to reach him. The operation was difficult, slowed by the same conditions that had caused the fall: wet rocks, uneven ground, and the constant rush of water. When they finally located Vergos, it was too late. His body was found lodged between large moss-covered boulders at the base of the waterfall. Paramedics recovered him from the rocks, but he had already succumbed to his injuries. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Footage from the aftermath showed the grim reality of the recovery effort, a stark contrast to the idyllic images that usually come from the location. The same spot that draws tourists for its beauty had once again proven to be unforgiving. Local authorities later confirmed that Vergos and his girlfriend had only recently arrived on Koh Samui, having begun their trip just days earlier. What was meant to be a memorable getaway quickly turned into a devastating loss. Police Major Chayut Tulashotikul described the girlfriend as being in a state of deep distress following the incident, a reaction that reflects just how suddenly everything changed. Tragically, this is not an isolated case. Namuangtu Waterfall, despite its popularity, has a history of similar accidents. Over the years, multiple tourists have fallen to their deaths or suffered serious injuries after slipping on its deceptively dangerous paths. Warning signs and safety advice are often present, but they are frequently overlooked by visitors eager to explore or capture the perfect photo. In Vergos' case, it wasn't a reckless stunt or a daring jump, just a simple step backward taken without realizing how little margin for error there was. And sometimes, that's all it takes. A single misjudged movement, a moment of distraction, one attempt to get a slightly better view. Then suddenly, the moment is gone, and so is everything else. There's always been a certain level of risk attached to action sports. That's kind of the whole point. The adrenaline, the danger, the challenge of pushing your limits and walking away unharmed, it's what draws people in. And to be fair, most of the time, with a bit of awareness and basic common sense, those risks can be managed. You respect the environment, follow safety measures, and you come out the other side with nothing more than a great story. But then, there are the people who seem determined to do the exact opposite. Because while action sports can be dangerous, they usually only turn deadly when you mix that danger with sheer stupidity. And when that happens, things don't just go wrong. They go spectacularly, tragically wrong. Take the case of 46-year-old David Monk. Back in 2008, David was on holiday in Sosdu, a popular ski resort in Italy, enjoying a winter getaway with a group of friends. It was the kind of trip many people look forward to. Snowy slopes, good company, and a few drinks to round off the evening. And, like many bad decisions, this one started with alcohol. After having a few beers, the group came up with what probably sounded like a hilarious idea at the time. At the bottom of the ski slope, there were protective mats wrapped around metal barriers. Safety features designed specifically to prevent serious injuries if someone lost control on the slope. Instead of seeing them as safety equipment, the group saw an opportunity. They decided to steal one of the mats and use it as a makeshift sled. Carrying the mat with them, they hiked back up the hill, clearly committed to turning this idea into reality. The concept was simple: throw themselves down the slope on the mat and enjoy the ride. What they didn't account for, or simply didn't care about, was the fact that they had just removed the very thing meant to protect them from what came next. When they launched themselves downhill, things escalated instantly. Without proper control, without brakes, and without any real plan beyond, "This will be fun," they sped down the slope with increasing momentum. And, as if it couldn't be more predictable, their ride ended exactly where it shouldn't have. They slammed straight into the same metal barrier they had stripped of its protective padding. This time, there was nothing to absorb the impact. The collision was devastating. David Monk suffered fatal injuries and died on the spot. What had started as a drunken joke turned into a fatal mistake in a matter of seconds. It's the kind of incident that feels almost surreal in how avoidable it was. Every element of it, from stealing safety equipment to using it recklessly, stacked the odds higher and higher against them. And yet, in the moment, none of it seemed to matter. In the aftermath, David's friend Alan McGregor described him as a brilliant guy in an interview. And while that may very well be true in many aspects of his life, the decision that led to his death paints a very different picture, one where judgment took a complete back seat. This wasn't an unavoidable accident. It wasn't bad luck. It was a chain reaction of poor choices, each one more questionable than the last. In the end, this wasn't about thrill-seeking or pushing limits. It was about a moment of reckless thinking that spiraled out of control. And unfortunately, it only took one ride down the slope for it to become a fatal one. A recent death at a U.S. national park has once again highlighted a troubling pattern. Tourists ignoring clear warnings, stepping into dangerous areas, and paying the ultimate price. Late last week, a 33-year-old Hawaii resident died after entering a restricted and hazardous section of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Officials say the man ventured into a closed area of the Kilauea caldera, an active volcanic zone known for its unstable terrain, toxic gases, and sudden environmental changes. The area had been clearly marked off limits, yet he proceeded anyway, triggering a large-scale search and rescue effort. Rescue crews were deployed overnight, navigating steep, treacherous ground in an attempt to locate him. After hours of searching through the dangerous terrain, responders finally found the man the following day. On February 27th, he was airlifted out and rushed to Hilo Benioff Medical Center. Tragically, despite these efforts, he was pronounced dead. While the incident itself is shocking, it is far from isolated. Across the United States, national parks have seen a steady rise in visitor numbers, and with that, an increase in injuries, rule violations, and fatalities. Experts say many of these incidents stem from a fundamental misunderstanding of what these parks actually are. Instead of recognizing them as wild, unpredictable environments, some visitors treat them like safe, controlled recreational spaces. Dylan Spencer, an assistant professor of criminal justice and criminology at Georgia Southern University, has studied this trend closely. According to him, the issue often comes down to how people perceive risk. Many tourists approach national parks with the same mindset they would bring to a city park or zoo, places where dangers are minimized and tightly managed. But national parks are nothing like that. They are raw, natural landscapes filled with real hazards, steep cliffs, unstable ground, extreme weather, geothermal activity, and unpredictable wildlife. Ignoring that reality can have serious and often fatal consequences. The Hawaii incident is just one example in a growing list of similar cases. In Yellowstone National Park, one of the country's most visited destinations, authorities have repeatedly warned visitors to stay on designated paths, especially in thermal vents which can collapse without warning. Despite this, violations continue. In April 2025, a tourist from Seattle was sentenced to a week in jail after getting dangerously close to Old Faithful, ignoring clear safety guidelines. 2 more arrests followed later that year for similar behavior. Other parks tell similar stories. In June, an 18-year-old man died after falling 50 feet at Olympic National Park in Washington. He had been walking on rocks near the top of Solduke Falls, an area known for its slippery, unstable surfaces. Despite warnings to stay on designated trails, he ventured too close to the edge and slipped. At Yellowstone again, an 83-year-old woman was severely injured after being gored by a bison, an incident that underscores how dangerous wildlife encounters can be when visitors ignore guidelines about keeping a safe distance. And in Utah's Bryce Canyon, 2 tourists lost their lives after climbing over a safety railing at a scenic overlook. What may have seemed like a harmless act for a better view turned into a fatal incident. According to experts and park officials, these incidents all point to the same underlying issue. Tourists underestimate the risks. They see beauty and assume safety, forgetting that these environments are not designed to protect them. Bill Wade, executive director of the Association of National Park Rangers, emphasized that park staff do everything possible to warn and protect visitors. From signs and barriers to guidelines and patrols, the risks are clearly communicated. Yet, time and again, some visitors choose to ignore them. Whether it's stepping off marked trails, crossing barriers, or approaching prohibited areas for a photo or a closer look, the pattern remains the same. And unfortunately, so do the outcomes. A 32-year-old Czech tourist turned a scenic trip to Thailand into a fatal lesson in ignoring rules after falling to his death from a restricted cliff at the Bang Khun waterfall on Koh Samui. In what can only be described as a painfully predictable outcome, the man decided that warning signs, barriers, and common sense were all optional, apparently less important than getting the perfect selfie. The tourist had arrived in Thailand on February 5th as part of a group of 8. Like many visitors chasing tropical adventure, they rented motorcycles and explored Koh Samui, soaking in the island's beaches and waterfalls. Everything seemed routine until Thursday, when the group visited the Bang Khun waterfall, a place known not just for its beauty, but also for its clearly marked danger zones that exist for a reason. While most people would respect the no-entry signs posted around hazardous areas, this particular tourist seemed to believe he was the exception. According to his companions, he walked straight past the warnings and made his way toward the edge of a steep, slippery cliff. His goal was simple: capture the most beautiful angle for a selfie, no matter the risk. As he edged closer to the drop, carefully framing his shot, reality finally caught up with him. The rocks near the waterfall were wet and unstable, and it only took one wrong step for everything to go wrong. He slipped and plunged roughly 30 meters down the cliff, crashing face down onto a partially submerged rock shelf below. In an instant, the pursuit of a photo turned into a fatal fall. His friends rushed to reach him, managing to get down to where he had landed in about 5 minutes. They attempted to revive him, performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation for around 15 minutes. Despite their efforts, there was nothing they could do. The injuries from the fall were too severe, and the consequences of his reckless decision were irreversible. Emergency responders, including police, soldiers, and rescue workers, were called to the scene. Retrieving the body proved to be a difficult and dangerous operation. The same slippery, steep conditions that caused the fall made it challenging for rescuers to safely navigate the area. It took them about 3 hours to carefully lift the body back up to the top of the cliff. He was later transported to the morgue at Koh Samui Hospital. Local officials were not surprised, just frustrated. Surat Thani tourism chief Samitasak Sutara explained that the cliff area is part of a protected catchment zone and is strictly off-limits to visitors. The warning signs are not there for decoration. They are there because the area is dangerous and has a history of accidents. Yet, despite these clear precautions, some tourists continue to ignore them, acting as though the rules simply do not apply. This was not the first time tragedy struck at that very spot. According to officials, 2 other tourists have previously fallen to their deaths from the same cliff, and 3 more have been injured in similar incidents. Just weeks earlier, on February 18th, a Russian tourist was injured after falling in the area. The pattern is obvious, but apparently not obvious enough for everyone. In the end, this incident is a stark reminder that nature does not reward entitlement or carelessness. Cliffs are not photo studios, and warning signs are not suggestions. Ignoring them does not make someone adventurous. It makes them reckless. And sometimes, as this unfortunate case shows, that kind of thinking leads to consequences that no second chance can fix.